Devon Dampier and Sam Leavitt are both incredibly fun quarterbacks, dual threat quarterbacks. Going into this game, Leavitt is better than Dampier right now. But I will say, Shahan, I think there is a world where Dampier is the better quarterback on Saturday. Could you see that?
I can see that for sure. I think that there's a couple pieces of this, right? One, I think that that this is certainly not the same level of overall defensive run, especially in the run game, defensive line, that what they saw against Texas Tech. And I expect that they're going to struggle a little bit more to set the edge. When you look at Arizona State, CJ Fight is kind of their big guy in the middle of the line. Very, very good player. But they don't necessarily have that same level of, especially hand in the dirt, edge player that Texas Tech had. So I think that Utah's offensive line is going to be able to create more opportunities for Devon Dampier, the runner. And I think that's going to open up the passing game. We saw, obviously, the very next week against West Virginia that Dampier looked a lot more comfortable throwing the football against a more overmatched defense. And while Arizona State is certainly a step up from that, I don't think that necessarily this is a fearsome group that's going to be able to shut down this offense. And for Leavitt, I mean, it's been interesting because Jordan Tyson at receiver is the best receiver in the Big 12, I think by a pretty wide margin, frankly. But after him, they've been kind of forgettable at receiver. And you've seen Sam Leavitt struggle in some of these games and some of these moments when he can't just find Tyson on the field. You see, they play 2 straight games against good Baylor and TCU teams. It goes down to the final field goal that they kick to win each game. But like, their offense has kind of been a little bit of a mess in the passing game. I don't think Leavitt's lived up to that billing to this point. And again, if they're able to protect Dampier at a high level, and again, give him a little bit more ability to escape, I think that makes for a pretty favorable matchup for this Utah offensive line.
I totally agree. Let's go back to Leavitt real quick, because I have been so fascinated, Shahan, by all the preseason quarterback hype nationally, just for everyone, and how that list now looks like a few weeks in the season. Drew Aller, Nussmeier, Klubnik, and Leavitt, another guy who was thrown around in the top 10, even top 5 in some ways. And it has been up and down. I absolutely agree. I mean, they don't have another receiver who's over 200 yards on the season. Like, that's outside of Tyson, another pass catch. Like, that is insane to think about this far into the year. He's got the 61st ranked QBR. He's obviously not the 61st best quarterback in college football, but is this a top 10 quarterback coming into Salt Lake City? And let's not forget, the last time ASU came up to Utah, it was 55-3. A much better ASU team, but I still think Leavitt's going to have to be really good for them to win this game.
Yeah, I mean, well, I think to go back, right, like you said, to 23-24, Leavitt coming in has been transformational for this team, just in the way that you have to defend this Arizona State team with his escapability. Because, they had been a little inconsistent on the offensive line, and adding a quarterback of that caliber, I think, changed a lot. But is he a top 10 quarterback? I mean, it's rated, like you said, as high as number 4 by some places. No. I think that he has been probably a top 25 to 30 quarterback in college football to this point. Not bad, but not necessarily somebody who's changing a whole lot for you either. I think just in the Big 12 alone, right? You look at Rocco Becht, you look at Sawyer Robertson, you look at Josh Hoover. I mean, there's a very legitimate chance. Jalen Daniels is playing really well right now. Like, there's a lot of quarterbacks that make it tough to even definitively say he's a top 5 quarterback in the Big 12 right now. Now, the Big 12, I think, is the best quarterback conference, at least at this moment, but still, that's saying a lot. So he's a very good player. I think that in some ways he's been failed by the players around him outside of Jordan Tyson, but you also see these moments where he's making bad decisions, where he's being inaccurate with the ball, where he's running when maybe he would be better off throwing. Like, he's still trying to figure out his life a little bit after Cam Skattebo went to the NFL. And while I think that he will figure it out by the end of the year, he's still working through that process heading into this weekend.
He is. It's funny you mentioned all those Big 12 quarterbacks too, and you didn't get to Avery Johnson, because it's been a rough year for Avery Johnson.
Yeah.
That's what's crazy is all these quarterback rankings. Johnson was a guy a lot of people were high on Kansas State, thought maybe he'd be a Heisman sleeper too. So it's just been wild. And, some people were saying Devon Dampier was more of a deep, like Heisman, maybe finalist to top. I said top 10 even. I thought, and I still think he has a chance to get there. It would take a lot, but like you said, Sean, too, like, it's just hard against Tech, because Tech is this amazing team, but then you haven't played any good teams either. I feel like Devon Dampier has grown as a passer, right? 12 picks last year, 3 so far this year. He just hasn't forced the ball as much so far. I think definitely there was probably something there with the ankle, but Also, like you mentioned, the quality of the defense definitely had something to say about that, since he looked a lot better against a much worse team the following week too. I've liked what I've seen from Devon Dampier. I feel like there's growth. He's making less turnover worthy plays. So hopefully got the ankle healthy over the bye week too. What have you made of his play so far this season?
Yeah, I think he's been very solid. I think he's been very good. I think he's been pretty much what was hoped and expected to a large extent. I still think back to, that UCLA game and the way that he was just in total command of that game. He looked like the best player on the field for most of that game. And it wasn't just that he obviously is a dynamic athlete, though that's huge. It's also that he made great decisions. It's also that, again, as a runner too, like I think they were very deliberate with how they used him. And my big question also, like I said, I had questions about the drop back passing, still a little concerned about that. But, again, this unit isn't built necessarily, and this offense isn't necessarily built around true drop back passing with too much consistency, right? Like, he's going to be on the move more often than not, even when he is passing the football. And I think that in those moments, he stood up really well. I was also worried that he was maybe a little bit more of a freelancer type quarterback than he was a structure type quarterback. Well, I think that through these first couple of games, he's played really well in structure when the offense has dictated him to be able to do so. So I think that he looks right now definitely like a top half quarterback in the Big 12. Like you said, I mean, I think his numbers are going to be really good at the end of the year. He's going to have a case for an all Big 12 team, but it's just a very competitive year, and I'm fascinated to see how it worked itself out.
It is competitive, and it's interesting. He's got interesting weapons as well, right? There was a lot of hype about it. Tobias Merriweather coming into this year. He has less than 100 yards receiving on the season. I still think him and Dampier will connect on at least a couple big plays this year, but Ryan Davis, clearly your number one guy, and it does feel like that chemistry is so big that they were able to build last year at New Mexico. Tight ends are back at Utah. Dallin Bentley's been a lot of fun to watch for this team. Backup J.J. Buchanan's made a couple of splash plays too, but like you said too, Sean, I don't feel like Utah needs these receivers to go absolutely crazy. Utah has won Pac-12 titles before with, tight ends making some plays, but the biggest thing being a quarterback doing some stuff with his legs. Just Cam made some plays in the run game more than anything else. It doesn't feel like Utah needs to have like 2,000-yard receivers, even two guys who go over 800 yards in order to contend in the Big 12, because they're still going to run the ball well and they're going to play defense. Sounds like a Kyle Whittingham championship level style to me.
Yeah, no question about it. And, I remember talking to Coach Whittingham before the year, and that was one of the things that he said was that we felt like this system in its modern form is a return in some ways to what Urban Meyer and those offenses looked like, right? Some of the power spread type stuff. And I think that you've seen some of that DNA. Probably one of the things that I've been most impressed by with Utah to this point is I think that they've handled kind of playing with different tempos better than I expected, right? Because, I mean, especially at New Mexico, so much of the time you're just turning things up, trying to produce as much as possible. Well, I think that they've showed with their personnel and with their offensive line, we can slow things down and still run some of those concepts, and they're going to have a chance to be effective as well. So I've really liked what I've seen so far. I think, again, it's been what we hoped to this point. But again, it's going to be a fascinating test heading into the heart of Big 12 play, especially against a team like Arizona State, how it holds up.
It will be. How about New Mexico this year, by the way? Jason Beck? Oh, my gosh.
Fun stuff, man. Fun stuff. It still kills me that they went from an OC named Jason Beck to a coach named Jason Eck. Yeah. But no, I've been very impressed by them because not a lot was left over from that New Mexico team whenever Bronco and Jason Beck left that program. They've done a fantastic job bringing some guys in, and this looks like a pretty formidable team in the Mountain West.
They do. Their best, like all their best offense is either with Utah now. Arizona got their receiver. And I think USC has one of their backs. Like, it's crazy what happened. The transfer portal era just leads so much change. It's part of the reason we see a Tech team able to turn around their defense so quickly and create one of the best D lines in college football. But first, today's episode of Locked On Utes is brought to you by our friends at PrizePicks. Every day we make decisions, but on PrizePicks, being right can actually get you paid. Don't miss the excitement of this football season with PrizePicks. When it's good to be right, you can get rewarded with PrizePicks. Playing PrizePicks is such a fun, simple way to add more excitement of football. You just pick more or less on player projections like Josh Allen's passing yards or Saquon Barkley's rushing for a touchdown, and you're in the game. I mean, I love how quickly you can make your lineup in just under a minute too. Also, PrizePicks PrizePicks just added stacks. So if I want to ride with a player, I can select their pass yards, rush yards, and touchdowns all in one lineup. And their new injury reboot feature, if your player leaves early and doesn't return, it won't count against you. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege, all caps and no spaces, to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. It's good to be right with PrizePicks.